Part 5. A New Galactic Order. The signing of the Tajin Accords changed everything. In the Grand Hall on the Neutral Station, Grand Arbiter Quellon and Commander Hyunwoo stood side by side before representatives from hundreds of worlds. The moment was broadcast across the galaxy, watched by trillions of beings. Today marks a new beginning, Quellon announced. The Galactic Council recognizes the Terran Federation as a sovereign power with full rights and privileges. We commit to ending policies of technological suppression and to allowing all species the opportunity to develop freely. Hyunwoo spoke next. The Terran Federation accepts this recognition. We commit to peaceful coexistence with all species and to defending the rights of those who cannot defend themselves. We will not seek conquest, but we will not tolerate oppression. They signed the accords together and the galaxy held its breath. It was done. Humans had gone from a hidden secret to a recognized power in less than 3 months, but the real work was just beginning. The Taijin system was immediately flooded with requests from other species. 7 different civilizations had already formally asked to join the Terran Federation. Dozens more were in preliminary talks. Everyone wanted to be associated with the power that had defeated the Council. President Ha-Jun, newly elected to lead the expanded Federation, faced the challenge of managing this explosive growth. Ha-Jun was older than Hyunwoo, a skilled politician who had spent decades building consensus in the Tajin Republic. Now he had to build consensus across multiple species and cultures. We can't accept everyone, Ha-Jun told his advisory council. We don't have the resources to protect dozens of worlds, and we need to ensure that species joining us truly share our values, not just seeking protection from the Council. After careful consideration, the Federation accepted 7 species into membership. The Prill were first, the small 4-armed beings who had suffered under Council rule for generations. Then came the Montari, whose economic collapse under Council trade policies had left their world in poverty. 5 others followed, each with their own story of oppression or suppression. The Federation's territory expanded dramatically. Instead of just the Tajin sector, they now controlled or protected 23 star systems. The population grew from 8 billion humans to over 30 billion beings of different species. General Hyunwoo, who had commanded ground forces during the war, was tasked with establishing a new defensive doctrine. The challenge was enormous. The Federation now had borders stretching across dozens of light years, all of which needed protection from potential Council aggression or from independent pirates and raiders. We can't defend everything with ships alone, Hyunwoo explained to the Military Planning Committee. We need a layered defense, sensor networks to give us early warning, defense platforms at key choke points, rapid response fleets that can reach trouble spots quickly, and local defense forces on each member world so they can hold out until help arrives. Over 6 months, Hyunwoo built the most sophisticated defense network in the galaxy. It combined human technology with contributions from member species. The Prill provided advanced sensor designs. The Montari contributed expertise in automated defense systems. Humans provided the gravitational weapons and ghost protocol drives. The result was a defensive perimeter that was nearly impenetrable. Any hostile force attempting to enter Federation space would be detected far in advance and would face layered defenses that could delay them long enough for the main fleet to respond. But the most surprising development came from young researcher Bora, who had been studying ancient human colony records. She found references to another colony ship, the Horizon's Promise, that had left Earth around the same time as the New Dawn. The ship had headed in a completely different direction, toward the outer rim of the galaxy. I think they survived, Bora told Hyunwoo excitedly. I found energy signatures in the outer rim that match our ghost protocol technology. Someone out there is using the same stealth systems we developed. Hyunwoo authorized an expedition. 3 ships under Captain Minho's command traveled to the outer rim, following the energy signatures Bora had detected. What they found was stunning. The Horizon's Promise had indeed survived. The descendants of that colony had built a civilization called the Frontier Alliance, spanning 8 star systems in the outer rim. They had developed differently from the Tajin Republic, with more emphasis on individual freedom and less centralized government, but they were unmistakably human. When Minho's ships made contact, the Frontier Alliance was cautious at first. They had stayed hidden just like the Tajin Republic, avoiding the Council's attention. But when they learned what the Terran Federation had achieved, their leaders agreed to a meeting. President Hajun traveled to the Frontier Alliance capital world to meet with their leader, a woman named Premier Sora. The two human civilizations had been separated for 3 centuries, evolving independently, but they shared a common heritage and common values. We should unite, Hajun proposed, not as one absorbing the other, but as equals joining together. We can create a truly pan-human civilization, one that's stronger together than apart. Sora considered this carefully. The Frontier Alliance was smaller than the Terran Federation, with only 2 billion people compared to the Federation's 30 billion. But they had advantages too. A different perspective, unique technologies, and experience surviving in the harsh outer rim. We'll join, Sora agreed, but we maintain our local government and our way of life. We're partners, not subjects. Agreed, Hajun said. They shook hands and humanity was reunited. The combined Federation now controlled 31 star systems and had a population of 32 billion. It was a major power in the galaxy, though still smaller than the Council. But size wasn't everything. The Federation had something the Council lacked: unity of purpose and the loyalty of its people. Trade routes began opening between the Federation and moderate Council worlds. Some Council species were curious about these humans who had appeared from nowhere. They wanted to trade, to learn, to establish diplomatic relations. The Council leadership approved these contacts cautiously, seeing them as a way to integrate the Federation into the existing galactic order. But what flowed along these trade routes surprised everyone. Human medical technology was far advanced in certain areas, particularly in regenerative medicine and genetic treatments. Human agricultural methods could increase crop yields by 30%. Human educational approaches emphasized creative thinking and problem-solving in ways that Council methods did not. Within a year, Council worlds were actively seeking human expertise. Doctors from the Federation were invited to teach in Council medical schools. Agricultural specialists helped improve food production on worlds that had struggled with shortages. Educators shared their methods with Council institutions. Dr. Mirai continued her research on the ancient ruins, now with access to sites across Federation space. She made a breakthrough that stunned the scientific community. The genetic markers she had found in humans were also present in dormant form in several other species. The ancient precursor civilization hadn't just been humans. It had been a coalition of different species working together. The precursors weren't suppressed by the Council, Mirai explained in a galactic broadcast. They were destroyed by the ancestors of the current Council species, who wanted power for themselves. The Council built itself on the ruins of a civilization that believed in cooperation and shared growth. We're not trying to rebuild the past. We're trying to reclaim the future they wanted to build. This revelation shook the Council to its core. It meant the Council's legitimacy was based on ancient conquest, not on any moral right to rule. Public opinion in Council space shifted dramatically. Citizens began demanding more reforms, more openness, more cooperation with the Federation. Hyun-woo, no longer serving as military commander, had retired to a quiet life on Taejin. He spent his days writing a history of the war and visiting the memorial dedicated to those who had died fighting for freedom. 3,000 Federation personnel had been killed during the 5-day war and the conflicts that followed. Each one had a name on the memorial wall. One day, a young soldier approached him at the memorial. "Commander Hyun-woo, I'm Sergeant Taewon. I served under Major Kyungmin during the assault on Telos Prime." "I remember the reports from that battle," Hyun-woo said. "You all did well." "Sir, I wanted to ask you something," Taewon said hesitantly. "Was it worth it? All the fighting, all the death. Did we do the right thing?" Hyun-woo looked at the names on the wall, thinking about the question. "We didn't have a choice about whether to fight. The Council would have destroyed Earth and eventually found us. We only had a choice about how to fight and what to build afterward." He turned to Taewon. 3,000 died so that billions could live free. I think they would say it was worth it. But we honor them by making sure their sacrifice meant something, by building something better than what came before. President Hajun stood before the Federation Assembly, delivering his annual address. The assembly now included representatives from 8 different species, all working together to shape Federation policy. Part 4. The galaxy reacts. The message from Commander Hyunwoo spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. On 1,000 worlds in 1,000,000 cities, beings of every species stopped what they were doing to watch the broadcast. A hidden human civilization had just conquered an entire sector. The impossible had happened. On the Council homeworld of Proxima Centralis, the Grand Assembly Hall erupted into chaos. Representatives from hundreds of species shouted at each other, demanding explanations, calling for military action, or simply expressing shock. Grand Arbiter Quellon, the senior member of the Council, sat in his elevated chair and watched the disorder with growing concern. Quellon was a Velkari, a species known for their logical minds and long lifespans. He had served on the Council for 90 years and had seen many crises. But this was different. This challenged everything the Council had built over millennia. A supposedly primitive species had not only survived but had thrived in secret, and had now defeated Council forces with embarrassing ease. "Order!" Quellon's voice boomed through the chamber, enhanced by the hall's acoustics. "We will have order." The chamber gradually quieted. Quellon activated a holographic display showing the battle reports from the Taijin sector. The numbers were devastating. The Council had lost every military installation in the region. Hundreds of ships destroyed, thousands of personnel captured, and they had achieved none of it against these humans. "How did our intelligence services miss an entire human civilization?" one representative demanded. "The humans used advanced stealth technology," replied the Council's military advisor. "Their ships can travel faster than light without leaving detectable energy signatures. They built their civilization in unmapped space far from our surveillance networks." "What are their capabilities?" another representative asked. The military advisor hesitated. "According to debriefings of captured personnel and analysis of their weapons, the humans possess technology equal to or superior to our own in several areas. They have gravitational weapons that can collapse our ships. They have stealth systems we cannot detect. And their tactical flexibility in combat far exceeds anything we've encountered." The chamber erupted again. The Council had maintained power through technological superiority. If humans could match or exceed that technology, the entire power structure of the galaxy was threatened. "We must destroy them immediately," a Vorak representative growled. "Send the main fleet. Crush this rebellion before it spreads." "No," Quellon said firmly. "We will not rush into another disaster. The humans defeated our forces in the Taijin sector because we underestimated them. We will not make that mistake again." He pulled up recordings of the human broadcasts. There was something in Commander Hyunwoo's words that troubled Quellon. The humans weren't just fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for the right to exist, for freedom from suppression. It was the kind of motivation that made enemies dangerous. While the Council debated, Ambassador Nari arrived at the neutral station designated for diplomatic contact. Nari was a diplomat, not a soldier, but she carried herself with the same confidence that had won battles in the Taijin sector. She was here to negotiate with the Council, to establish terms for peace or at least prevent total war. The Council had sent a delegation to meet her, led by a senior ambassador named Quellis. Quellis was a Praxian, a species with 4 arms and crystalline features that reflected light in rainbow patterns. He had decades of diplomatic experience, but he had never negotiated with humans before. "Ambassador Nari," Quellis greeted her formally. "The Council is willing to discuss terms." "Good," Nari replied. "Because my government is also willing to talk. But we have conditions." They moved to a private conference room. Nari presented the Terran Federation's demands: recognition as a sovereign state, guaranteed rights to the Taijin sector and surrounding systems, and an end to the Council's policy of suppressing emerging civilizations. "These demands are excessive," Quellis said carefully. "The Council cannot simply abandon policies that have maintained galactic stability for thousands of years." "Stability for whom?" Nari asked sharply. "We have evidence that the Council has systematically destroyed dozens of emerging civilizations. You didn't maintain stability. You maintained your own power by murdering anyone who might challenge it." She activated a data display showing the information Dr. Mireille had found in the ancient ruins. The evidence was damning. Records of civilization suppressed, economic sanctions that caused famines, biological weapons released on developing worlds, all carefully disguised to look natural. Quellis studied the data with growing discomfort. Where did you get this information? From ruins that predate the Council, Nari said. From the civilization that existed before you took power. The civilization that built a galaxy where species could grow together instead of being controlled by a few. She leaned forward. Humans might be descendants of that civilization. We're reclaiming what was stolen. While diplomats talked, Captain Minho patrolled the borders of Terran space with his fleet. Minho was younger than most fleet captains, only in his mid-30s. But he had proven himself during the 5-day war. Now he commanded the defense of the newly claimed territory. His sensors detected Council reconnaissance ships probing the borders, testing Terran responses. 3 separate Council fleets had approached in the last week, each time backing away when Minho's ships moved to intercept. The Council was trying to understand Terran capabilities without committing to a full battle. Today, a Council fleet came closer than before. 20 ships entered Terran space, clearly testing how far they could push before Minho reacted. It was a dangerous game. All ships intercept course, Minho ordered, but do not fire unless fired upon. Let's show them we're watching, but we're not looking for unnecessary fights. His fleet moved to surround the Council ships. The Terran vessels were outnumbered but better positioned. The Council commander had a choice, withdraw or fight. After a tense minute, the Council ships turned and left Terran space. Minho smiled grimly. Send them a message. Tell them that Terran space is closed to uninvited guests, but any Council ships that request permission to enter peacefully will be considered on a case-by-case basis. We're strong, but we're not unreasonable. The message was important. The Terran Federation wanted the galaxy to know they could defend themselves but weren't seeking conquest. They wanted peace, but on their own terms. Meanwhile, Dr. Mirai released her complete research findings to the entire galaxy. She broadcast the data from the ancient ruins, the evidence of Council suppression, and the genetic analysis suggesting humans were connected to the precursor civilization. It was an information bomb that exploded across galactic society. News networks on 100 worlds picked up the story. Public opinion began to shift. Many citizens of Council worlds were horrified to learn what their government had done. The Council had always presented itself as a benevolent force maintaining peace. Now it looked like a tyrannical power crushing anyone who threatened its control. Protests erupted on several Council worlds. Citizens demanded answers. How many civilizations had been destroyed? What gave the Council the right to decide which species could live and which had to die? The political pressure on the Council was enormous. In the Grand Assembly, Kelon watched the growing crisis with concern. The Council was fracturing. Some members wanted total war against the humans to restore Council authority. Others wanted reform, an end to the suppression policies. Still others were simply paralyzed by fear of what might come next. We have 3 options, Quelon told the Assembly. We can launch a war of extermination against the humans, but that would require committing massive resources and would likely fail given their technological capabilities and defensive position. We can attempt to negotiate a containment treaty that limits human expansion while recognizing their sovereignty. Or we can accept them as equals and reform our policies to prevent future rebellions. The debate raged for days. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. Other species began contacting the Terran Federation secretly. The Prill, who had been oppressed by the Council for centuries, sent a delegation asking for protection. A species called the Montari, whose homeworld had been economically devastated by Council trade policies, requested an alliance. Others followed. Jiwon, still working in intelligence, coordinated these contacts. She met with representatives from 7 different species, all of whom had suffered under Council rule, and saw the Terran Federation as potential liberators or at least as proof that the Council could be challenged. We can't protect everyone, Hyunwoo warned when Jiwon reported these contacts. We're not ready for that kind of responsibility. We don't have a choice, Jiwon replied. The galaxy is watching us. If we turn away species that ask for help, we're no better than the Council. If we help them, we create a coalition that makes us stronger. It was a difficult decision. Every species the Federation helped would make the Council more hostile. But turning them away would make the Federation look like hypocrites who talked about freedom, but only cared about their own survival. Part 3. The 5-Day War. The attack began at exactly midnight Republic Standard Time. 400 human warships appeared simultaneously at 6 different points across the local star systems. They had used Youngbay's Ghost Protocol drives to arrive without warning, without detection, without giving the Council any chance to prepare. Fleet Captain Soman watched from the bridge of the Iron Tiger as the first targets came into view. Council surveillance satellites orbited lazily around their monitoring stations, completely unaware of the death approaching them. Soman gave the order calmly. Fire! Missiles streaked through space, each one guided by advanced targeting computers. Within 90 seconds, every surveillance satellite in the sector was destroyed. The Council was now blind. They could not see what was happening, could not send warnings, could not call for help. On the Council garrison station above planet Helios 4, Overlord Threnix was reviewing supply reports when his communication systems went dark. The screens that normally showed data from dozens of satellites suddenly displayed nothing but static. What's happening? Threnix demanded. He was a Vorak, a species that looked like bipedal lizards with thick scales and powerful builds. Threnix had held this command post for 20 years without any real excitement. This sector was peaceful, boring even. Nothing ever happened here. His second officer was frantically checking systems. Sir, we've lost contact with all surveillance satellites. All of them simultaneously. That's impossible, Threnix said. Equipment doesn't fail simultaneously across 6 different systems. Check for enemy action. Before the officer could respond, the station shook violently. Alarms began screaming. Red lights flashed across every console. Threnix grabbed his command chair to keep from falling as another explosion rocked the station. We're under attack, someone shouted. Multiple ships, unknown configuration, firing advanced weapons. Threnix pulled up the tactical display. What he saw made no sense. Dozens of ships surrounded the station, ships that had appeared from nowhere. Their design was strange, angular, and aggressive. They were firing weapons that punched through the station's shields like they were paper. Return fire, Threnix ordered. All weapons. Deploy the defense fleet. But it was already too late. The mysterious attackers had positioned themselves perfectly. They had come out of their strange, faster-than-light travel at exactly the right spots to hit the station's weak points. Council ships began launching from the garrison, but they were confused and disorganized. They had been caught completely by surprise. Admiral Daehyun commanded the attack from his flagship, the Thunder of Taejon. He watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. The Council forces were reacting exactly as predicted, scrambling to respond to an attack they didn't understand, from an enemy they didn't know existed. Target the garrison's main reactor, Daehyun ordered. 1 gravitational warhead maximum yield. The weapon launched from a nearby destroyer. It was one of Dr. Mirai's special creations, a missile that generated a focused gravity field on impact. The warhead struck the garrison station's central reactor and activated. For 3 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then the entire center section of the station began to collapse inward. Metal screamed as gravity pulled it toward a single point. The reactor core imploded, and the resulting explosion ripped the station apart. Debris scattered across space, and the Council's main defensive position in the sector ceased to exist. Across the sector, similar scenes played out. Human ships appeared, destroyed their targets, and disappeared before the Council could mount an effective response. Communication relays exploded. Military outposts went dark. Trade stations were captured by boarding teams that moved with ruthless efficiency. By the end of the first day, the Council had lost every surveillance asset, every communication station, and half of its military infrastructure in the sector. They still didn't know who was attacking them. Threnix had survived the destruction of his station by evacuating in an escape pod. He was picked up by one of his own patrol ships and immediately tried to send a message to Council High Command. But the communication network was gone. Every relay had been destroyed. He couldn't call for help. He couldn't warn anyone. He was cut off. Who were they? Threnix demanded of his officers. What species attacks like this? Nobody had an answer. The attacking ships didn't match any known design in the Council database. Their weapons were unfamiliar. Their tactics were aggressive and precise, unlike the cautious approaches most species used in warfare. On the second day, Salmon led her attack on the Council shipyard at Telos Prime. This was the most heavily defended target in the sector, a massive orbital facility where the Council built their warships. Destroying it would cripple the Council's ability to reinforce this region for months. The shipyard was protected by automated defense platforms, minefields, and a fleet of 30 warships. It should have been impossible to attack successfully. But Somin had studied the defenses for months looking for weaknesses. She had found them. "Launch the fighter wings," Somin ordered. 200 small craft poured out of the Iron Tiger and the other carriers in her fleet. They were piloted by the best flyers in the Republic, men and women who had trained for this exact mission. Among them was pilot Yunbi, a young woman who had grown up on the mining colonies and learned to fly in the dangerous asteroid fields around Tajan's outer planets. She led her squadron through an approach that should have been suicidal. The asteroid field near Telos Prime was dense and full of radiation that confused sensors. Most pilots avoided it. Yunbi flew through it like she was born there. Her squadron followed, trusting her completely. They emerged from the asteroid field right behind the shipyard's defensive perimeter, where the automated platforms couldn't target them without hitting the shipyard itself. "All squadrons, hit the docking bays," Yunbi commanded. Her voice was calm, almost casual. As she guided her fighter through defensive fire that would have killed a less skilled pilot, she fired missiles at the shipyard's main docking bay, destroying the doors and trapping dozens of council ships inside. The other squadrons followed her lead, crippling the shipyard's ability to launch its defenders. Then Somin's capital ships moved in, using their gravitational warheads to tear apart the defense platforms. Within 4 hours, the shipyard was a burning wreck, and Telos Prime's orbital space belonged to the Republic. Yunbi's tactical brilliance in threading through the asteroids became legendary among the fleet. Pilots started calling the maneuver Yunbi's Needle and began practicing it in simulations. On the third day, Major Kyungmin led the ground assault on Fortress World Telos Prime. The planet below the shipyard was a council military base, home to 50,000 soldiers and heavy defensive installations. Kyungmin had only 20,000 troops, but they were all veterans of the Republic's frontier wars, experienced in fighting against superior numbers. The assault began with orbital bombardment that knocked out the planet's shield generators and communication arrays. Then the dropships descended, carrying soldiers in powered armor that enhanced their strength and speed. Kyungmin's forces hit 6 different points simultaneously, spreading the council defenders thin. The fighting was brutal. Council soldiers were well-trained and well-equipped, but they were used to fighting enemies who followed predictable patterns. Human soldiers didn't follow patterns. They adapted constantly, changing tactics whenever the enemy found a defense. Kyungmin watched his troops flow around council strong points like water, finding weak spots and exploiting them ruthlessly. When council forces set up defensive positions, human soldiers used flanking maneuvers and vertical assaults to bypass them. When council commanders tried to predict human movements, the humans changed their approach. "They keep changing their tactics," one council commander reported to his superiors. "We establish a defense and they attack from a completely different direction. We set a trap and they avoid it like they can read our minds." But the humans weren't reading minds. They were just refusing to be predictable. It was human nature to adapt, to try new approaches, to refuse to accept that there was only one way to solve a problem. After 17 hours of fighting, the council forces on Telos Prime surrendered. Kyungmin accepted their surrender with honor, treating prisoners well and providing medical care for the wounded. He wanted the council to know that humans could be fierce in war but honorable in victory. On the 4th day, Threnix attempted a desperate counterattack. He had gathered the remaining council ships in the sector, about 60 vessels, and planned to retake the Helios system. It was a sound tactical decision based on traditional council military doctrine, but Admiral Daehyun had anticipated exactly this move. When Threnix's fleet arrived in the Helios system, they found themselves surrounded. Daehyun had positioned his ships in a perfect pincer formation, hidden using the Ghost Protocol drives until the exact moment Threnix committed to his attack. The council fleet was caught between 2 forces, unable to retreat without exposing their vulnerable engine sections. Part 2. The silent build-up 18 months passed like a storm approaching slowly over the horizon. Every day brought the Republic closer to war, and every person in the Tajan system felt it. Engineer Youngbei worked in a research facility buried deep inside an asteroid. He barely slept anymore. His team was building something that should have been impossible according to every physics textbook in the galaxy. They called it the Ghost Protocol Drive System. It would let ships travel faster than light without leaving the energy signature that Council sensors could detect. The problem was that normal faster-than-light travel bent space, and bending space created ripples that spread outward like waves in water. Council sensor stations could detect those ripples from hundreds of light-years away, but Youngbei had found a different approach. Instead of bending space, his drive folded it. The ship would step from one point in space to another without passing through the space in between. No ripples, no detection, no warning. Run the test again, Youngbei told his assistant. They had run this test 300 times already. Each time something small went wrong. A power fluctuation, a timing error, a calculation that was off by a decimal point, but they were getting closer. This time the test probe disappeared from the launch bay and reappeared exactly where they wanted it, 2,000 kilometers away. No energy signature, no detectable trace. Perfect. Youngbei allowed himself to smile. Send the results to Admiral Dae-hyun. Tell him we're ready for full production. Across the system on planet Taejin, Fleet Captain Soman stood in the shipyard watching the construction of her new command. The Iron Tiger was unlike any ship the Republic had built before. It was massive, a carrier that could hold 200 fighter craft, but it was also stealthy. The hull was coated with materials that absorbed scanner beams. The engines were Youngbei's new Ghost protocol systems, and the weapons were something special that Dr. Mirai had designed. Soman had spent the last year training her pilots and crew. They practiced combat maneuvers in simulation after simulation, fighting against computer opponents that used Council tactics. Soman was tough on her people because she knew that mistakes in training meant deaths in real combat. Captain, one of her officers approached. We received the final combat assignments. You'll be leading the strike on the Council shipyard at Telos Prime. Soman nodded. Telos Prime was the Council's main military construction facility in this region. Taking it out would cripple their ability to build reinforcements. It would also be the hardest target. The shipyard was protected by automated defense platforms, mines, and a garrison of Council warships. Good, Soman said. That's where we can hurt them most. In her laboratory, Dr. Mirai watched the test results from her latest weapon prototype. The gravitational warhead had just crushed a decommissioned cargo ship into a ball of metal the size of a car. The weapon generated a focused gravity field so intense that it collapsed anything caught inside it. Armor, shields, hull plating, nothing could resist it. How many can we produce? Admiral Dae-hyun asked. He had come to observe the test personally. We can build 50 of them before the operation begins, Mirai said. After that, production will be limited by the availability of rare materials. But 50 should be enough for the initial strikes. Dae-hyun studied the crushed remains of the test ship. The Council has nothing like this? Nothing, Mirai confirmed. They've relied on the same weapons technology for thousands of years. They innovate slowly because they don't need to innovate. They've always had overwhelming numbers. She looked at him. We don't have numbers, so we need better weapons. Will it be enough? Dae-hyun asked quietly. I don't know, Mirai admitted, but it's what we have. While the military prepared for war, Chancellor Hana faced a different challenge. She had to evacuate civilians from the most vulnerable planets and prepare the Republic's economy for war production. Food production was shifted to focus on long-term storage supplies. Medical facilities expanded to handle potential casualties. Children were moved from the outer planets to the fortified bunker worlds near the system's center. Hana met with parents who cried because their children were being sent away. She met with factory workers who were afraid they would lose their jobs as factories converted to military production. She met with religious leaders who questioned whether war was the right choice. Every day brought new problems, new fears, new questions. You're doing well, Hyunwoo told her one evening. They sat in her office, both exhausted from another long day. I don't feel like I'm doing well, Hana said. I feel like I'm preparing 8 billion people to die. You're preparing them to survive, Hyunwoo corrected. There's a difference, is there? Hana asked. If we lose this war, the Council will destroy us. They'll make an example of us to ensure no other species ever thinks about rebelling. Everyone we've evacuated, everyone we've armed, everyone we've prepared for war, they'll all die anyway. Then we won't lose, Hyunwoo said simply. Hana laughed, but it was a bitter sound. You make it sound easy. It won't be easy, Hyunwoo acknowledged. But I've seen what our people can do. I've seen Youngbei create technology that shouldn't exist. I've seen Mirai build weapons from theoretical physics. I've seen Soman train pilots who can fly through asteroid fields without scratching their ships. He looked at her. We're not going to lose because we can't afford to lose. And humans have never been good at accepting impossible odds. While the Republic prepared openly, Ji-won worked in the shadows. She had returned to Council space with a new identity and a new mission. She needed detailed intelligence about Council fleet movements, military response times, and command structures. She got a job as a maintenance worker on a Council communication station. Nobody paid attention to maintenance workers. They were invisible, part of the background. It was perfect for gathering secrets. Ji-won spent 3 months on that station, slowly copying data from the communication logs. She learned which Council fleets were stationed where, how quickly they could respond to threats, and which commanders were competent versus which ones had their positions because of political connections. She also found something unexpected. Another spy, an alien named Velthus who worked as a data analyst on the station. Velthus was from a species called the Prill, small beings with 4 arms and large eyes. The Prill had been conquered by the Council 200 years ago and had been treated as second-class citizens ever since. Ji-won discovered Velthus was stealing data and sending it to Prill resistance groups. They were both spies, both stealing secrets from the same station. One evening, Ji-won confronted Velthus in a storage room. "I know what you're doing," Ji-won said quietly. Velthus froze, his 4 hands trembling. "Please don't report me. They'll execute my family." "I'm not going to report you," Ji-won said. "I'm doing the same thing." She showed him her own data collection device. "I'm human. From the Tajan Republic. You've never heard of us because we've been hiding. But we're about to stop hiding." Velthus stared at her. "There are hidden humans?" "Yes," Ji-won said. "And we're going to fight the Council. When we do, it's going to create chaos. That chaos might be an opportunity for the Prill and other oppressed species." She paused. "I need your help. I need you to give me everything you know about Council fleet movements in this sector. In exchange, I'll make sure the Republic knows that the Prill want freedom too." Velthus considered this for a long moment. Then he nodded. "If you're really going to fight them, then yes. I'll help you." The intelligence Velthus provided was invaluable. He knew details that Ji-won would have taken months to discover. He knew which Council commanders were overconfident and which ones were paranoid. He knew which defense systems had vulnerabilities and which trade routes were poorly guarded. Ji-won sent all of this information back to the Republic through encrypted quantum channels. Admiral Daehyun used it to refine his battle plans, identifying weak points in the Council's defenses and optimal strike times. As the 18 months came to an end, the Republic was ready. 400 warships floated in hidden anchorages throughout the outer system, their crews trained and their weapons loaded. Ground forces had practiced assault operations on mock-ups of Council facilities. Intelligence networks had mapped every target. Supply lines had been established to keep the military fed and armed for months of fighting if necessary. Commander Hyun-woo called one final meeting before the operation began. All the senior commanders gathered in the war room. The holographic display showed their targets glowing in red across 6 different locations. "This is the moment we've been building toward," Hyun-woo said. "In 6 hours, we launch the attack. The Council thinks we don't exist. They think humanity is weak and trapped near Earth. We're going to show them how wrong they are." He looked around the room. "Some of us won't survive this war, but all of us will make sure that humanity survives, that Earth survives, that future generations will live free instead of dying as slaves." "What happens after we win?" someone asked. "After we win," Hyun-woo said, "we build something better than the Council. We build a place where species can grow without being suppressed. We become the protectors instead of the victims." He smiled. "But first we have to win." Commander Hyun-woo stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, watching the sunrise over planet Taejin. The golden light spread across the blue oceans and green continents below. It was beautiful and it was secret. The entire galaxy thought humanity was weak and trapped near Earth. They had no idea about this place. 300 years ago, a colony ship called the New Dawn had fled from Earth. Back then, Earth was dying from wars over water and food. 50,000 desperate humans had stolen the ship and jumped into deep space, running away from the violence and searching for hope. They had found it here, in a star system so far from known space that no one had ever mapped it. Now 8 billion humans lived across 12 planets in this system. They called their nation the Tajan Republic. They had cities that reached into the clouds, farms that fed entire worlds, and technology that would make the Galactic Council very nervous. That was why they stayed hidden. Hyunwoo turned away from the window as Dr. Mirai entered the observation deck. She looked tired and worried. She carried a data tablet in her hands and her fingers were shaking slightly. Hyunwoo had known Mirai for 10 years. She was the smartest person he had ever met, and she was almost never afraid. Seeing her like this made his stomach tighten. "We have a problem," Mirai said quietly. She activated the tablet and showed him a star map. Red markers covered dozens of systems. "These are all the places where the Galactic Council has destroyed emerging civilizations in the last 1,000 years. I found the data in the ruins on Ganghwa." Hyunwoo studied the map. His jaw clenched. "They killed them all?" "Not directly," Mirai explained. "They used economic sanctions, technology restrictions, and sometimes biological weapons. They made it look natural. They made it look like these species just failed to evolve properly." She swiped to another screen. But it was murder. Systematic murder to keep the Council in power. The ruins on Ganghwa had been discovered 6 months ago. The planet was on the outer edge of the Taijin system, cold and rocky. A mining crew had found strange structures buried under the ice. When scientists examined them, they realized these ruins were millions of years old. They belonged to a civilization that had existed before the current Galactic Council, before any of the species that now ruled the galaxy. Inside those ruins, Mirai and her team had found data archives. The information inside was shocking. It showed that the galaxy had once been full of different civilizations, all growing and learning together. But then one group had decided they wanted control. They had formed the Council and had spent thousands of years making sure no new species could challenge them. "There's more," Mirai said. She looked directly at Hyunwoo. "Our agent Ji-won intercepted a Council transmission 3 days ago. They know about Earth. They've been watching it. And they've decided that humanity is becoming too unpredictable, too dangerous." She paused. "They're planning to release a plague on Earth within 5 years. They'll blame it on natural causes. Earth will die, and no one will know the truth." Hyunwoo felt cold anger spreading through his chest. He had family back on Earth. Cousins, distant relatives who had no idea that the Taijin Republic even existed. Earth was struggling, but people there were surviving. They were building slowly, carefully, and the Council was going to kill them all just to maintain power. "How reliable is this information?" he asked. "Ji-won has never been wrong," Mirai replied. "She risked her life getting this data out of a Council facility. She's certain." Hyunwoo walked back to the window. Below, he could see cargo ships moving between the orbital stations and the planet's surface. He could see the gleaming solar panels that powered the cities. He could see the defense satellites that protected them from asteroids and radiation. All of this had been built in secret, hidden from the galaxy for 3 centuries. The Taijin Republic had stayed hidden because they were afraid. The Council was powerful, with thousands of worlds and millions of ships. The Republic had only 12 planets and a defense fleet that was meant to protect them from pirates and accidents, not fight wars. But they had something the Council did not expect. They had human creativity and human determination. "Call a war council," Hyunwoo said finally. "Get Admiral Daehyun, Chancellor Hana, and all the senior commanders. We need to meet within 6 hours." Mirai nodded. "You're thinking of fighting them." "I'm thinking of surviving," Hyunwoo corrected. "If we do nothing, Earth dies. And eventually they'll find us too. We can't hide forever." He looked at her. "You found evidence in those ruins that humans might be descended from the ancient precursor race, didn't you?" Mirai hesitated, then nodded. "The genetic markers match. It's not certain, but it's possible that humans are the descendants of the civilization that built those ruins, the original civilization that the Council destroyed to take power." "Then maybe it's time we took back what was stolen," Hyunwoo said. 6 hours later, the War Council met in the secured chamber deep inside the orbital station. Admiral Daehyun arrived first, a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had spent 40 years fighting against automated alien defense systems left behind by dead civilizations. He knew how to fight against superior technology. Chancellor Hana came next, the political leader of the Republic. She was younger than Hyunwoo, only in her early 40s, but she had kept the Republic together through economic crashes and political disputes. She was smart and practical. Ji-won was the last to arrive. She moved quietly like a shadow. She was the Republic's best intelligence operative, someone who could slip into enemy territory and steal secrets without being detected. She had spent 3 years undercover in council space, gathering information. Hyunwoo explained everything. He showed them the evidence from the ruins, the intercepted transmission about Earth, and Mirai's analysis of the council's pattern of suppression. When he finished, the room was silent. "We can't win a direct war against the entire council," Chancellor Hana said carefully. "They have millions of ships." "We don't need to fight the entire council," Admiral Daehyun replied. He pulled up a tactical map. "We only need to control this system and the 3 systems around it. If we can do that, we can establish a defensive perimeter. We can make it too expensive for them to attack us." "And how do we take control?" Hana asked. "We hit them first," Daehyun said. "Hard and fast. We destroy every council surveillance station, every military outpost, every communication relay in this region before they know we exist. We take away their ability to see us or call for help. Then we fortify and dare them to come. That's an act of war," Hana said. "They declared war on us when they decided to kill Earth," Hyunwoo responded. "We're just choosing to fight back." The council talked for hours. They debated the morality of a surprise attack, the risk to their people, and the chances of success. In the end, they took a vote. It was unanimous. The Tajan Republic would hide no longer. They would strike first, claim their space, and show the galaxy that humanity would not be erased quietly. As the council broke up, Mirai approached Hyunwoo one last time. "Are you sure about this?" "No," Hyunwoo admitted. "But I'm sure about doing nothing. And that option gets everyone killed." He looked at her. "We're going to need better weapons. Can you do it?" Mirai smiled, but it was a cold smile. "I've been working on something. Give me 18 months. I'll give you weapons that will make the council wish they'd never heard of humanity." The decision was made. The Republic began preparing for war.